Hello, my name's Philippa Waller.
My name is Penelope Waller, and we are two of the directors at 4D Human Being.
And welcome to the 4D Human Being podcast. What's it all about, Pen?
It's all about your personal and professional relationships. It's about your communication skills, how you lead, how you work and build teams, how you are looking after yourself and your well-being, and how you are much more at choice. What do we mean by that?
Well, sometimes we can get a little caught in patterns in life and we can all be a little bit on our automatic pilot. So 4D Human Being is all about helping us get back to choice and being a four-dimensional human being. And your fourth dimension, of course,
is intention. So whether it's about your impact, your leadership style, your team dynamics, whether it's about your well-being, whether it's about your communication or your presentation skills, anything that involves human beings interacting with other human beings, 4D Human Being are here to help.
we're going to take a deep dive and look at some tools, insights, theories that are going to help you go from a 3D human doing to a 4D human being so that you can happen to the world rather than the world simply happening to you. Hello.
Hello and welcome.
And welcome. We've just clicked record as the lawnmower next door stopped.
Yes, and to be fair, we are recording this on a Sunday.
Yes, indeed.
So it's officially a non-work day.
It's a reasonable thing to want to mow your lawn
and
on a
yet,
Sunday.
The new ways of working and recording podcasts require silence.
Yes, we were just thinking that because, and this is no good thing, but because the working boundaries are so blurred now and everyone's working all the time. In fact, I heard Joshua Anthony on Desert Island Disc this morning, Radio 4. Very rarely listen to the radio now. But he was saying his company's called 258, which is going one further than 24/7. And if there was an extra hour and an extra day each week, like what could you do in it? And I'm like, I sort of get in a way that's sort of saying you'll go the extra mile. I'm not sure it's good messaging to say we just need more time to work.
No,
do you know what I mean?
I thought we were moving to a 4-day week.
Yeah, exactly.
That
We're going in the other way. I want to say, off the back of our last podcast about communicate, over-communicate. I heard on the radio this morning there's an airport in the north of the UK, of England.
In Manchester.
That is having some disruption this morning, and lots of flights have been completely cancelled. And the headline was utter chaos, zero communication.
Oh.
And I thought, utter chaos is utter chaos. Like, you can't solve utter chaos just by doing, that needs something organising.
I think there's a power cut or something. So yes.
But
not great at an airport.
Zero communication.
Yeah.
You can do something about.
And it makes me think, although I didn't hear that on the radio, it makes me think, if there had been communication, would the headline have been utter chaos?
That's
probably not.
That is my point.
Yeah.
If you did something about the second one, you'd solve the first one.
Totally.
So we were literally talking about when things go wrong at airports a couple of weeks ago, and if you don't communicate, you get chaos, and that is the headline.
They need to be picking up the phone to 4D.
They certainly need to be listening to the 4D podcast. Exactly. Communicate.
So today is the third and final podcast in our series about what to do through challenging times.
Yes, indeed.
And we're recording this a little bit in advance, aren't we? Because we're going to take a little vacation.
We're taking a break.
Oh, it's going to be nice.
Where I don't intend to communicate. I intend to other than
lay,
other than with myself. Exactly.
So today we're going to cover our final two topics from your fabulous article and give even more tips and tools about what to do through challenging times.
Indeed. So the last two topics, if we remember, the 5 steps to get through tough times. Firstly, communicate. I would say over-communicate. Yep. Number 2, adopt the accept and build mindset. You really want that possibility mindset. Thirdly, the energy to act. We can get caught in overthinking, analysis paralysis, and sometimes we simply need to fire ourselves, our leaders and our people up to do something.
Yes.
And today, the last 2 are around connection and vision of the future. So we're going to go through these in order. So we'll start with connection. And I was really thinking about this last night and thinking not only about organisations. And if we think about organisations we can think both about in difficult times of change, you're either going to be directly affected, either you're being moved to a different team or structure, or you're being transitioned out, or you're having to do that, you're having to help transition people through change, or you're somebody who's less affected directly, but that's all happening around you and you're surrounded by people who are being affected by that. So sort of whichever way you slice it through in organisations, that's what can happen through tough times. Yeah. And then I was also thinking about our personal lives and our personal relationships. And when we get disruption or unexpected news, or we get disagreement. Yeah. And so I was thinking about both of those things and thinking from a really, really human perspective, not just thinking about, strategically, what do we need to do in times of change, but what happens. And of course, it can be so tempting to fall into patterns of retreating and isolation and avoiding conversations.
Either deliberately or unconsciously.
Yeah. For safety.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes if you're upset about a decision that's been made in your workplace, or you're upset with a partner or a loved one, you can deliberately kind of step back and decide not to communicate with them. But we can also do it subconsciously as well, because maybe we don't realise that we've kind of not stepped in, not communicated, not connected. But we might do it because we don't know what to say. It feels too hard.
We're frightened of the response.
Exactly. So it can be both deliberate and unconscious. Yeah. And of course, when connection retreats and kind of breaks away, it's, I mean, from the work done by the Gottman Institute, in terms of relationships, it is the hardest one to overcome because you've got no connection and no communication. Yeah. At least if there's slightly negative communication, you've at least got
there's challenge.
Yeah, you've got some communication going on. But that kind of stonewalling, ignoring and cutting off is one of the hardest things to overcome.
Yeah, the Gottman Institute, looking at couples, talk about turning away and turning towards. And so this is thinking about how can we turn towards. And I think the other thing that happens in connection, and I cannot tell you how many times I hear this in, just personal relationships and conversations rather, with coaching clients and with therapy clients, I don't want to be a burden. So, about reaching out to people, even simply to talk about how you're feeling. Yeah. So there's a number of reasons why we might move away from connection. Yeah. And I get it, because I do it. And it's patterns, and it's about retreat to safety because we don't want to be vulnerable, or we don't want the conflict, or we don't want the disappointment of what the answer is going to be from our boss because he can't change or she can't change what's actually happening, or they can't change what's actually happening.
Perhaps there are things we feel we can't say in those certain moments. Yeah. Perhaps we can't share certain pieces of information either about our own transition or somebody else's. Yeah. So then it can feel easier to disconnect completely.
Absolutely. And I'm taking a breath here because I really feel this on a really human level. And also this happens in grief as well, and bereavement, like through really tough changes in life. And yet we know that connection is healing and connection helps. Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge that I know that can be hard. Yeah. If we think about change in organisations, for example, or even a personal, rupture in a relationship, think about change in organisations. The idea of getting into a room with all your colleagues, some of whom might be staying in an organisation, some of whom might be leaving, some of whom might be moving to a different place, people will feel differently. It's complicated because that's going to bring up so much. And you've got to be in that with people, not knowing how they feel, what they're going to say. So I really get that it can feel difficult. And we know the stats on this. We know that connection is better. If we can get over that kind of initial hump, if you like, and be in connection, it does so much. Yeah.
And you don't have to necessarily deal with and discuss the issue at hand.
Go for a bike ride.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Whether that's personal or professional, talk about something different. Connect over a coffee and talk about the weather or the
TV show,
or anything at all. It's not necessarily about connecting to solve the problem or to kind of therapize and discuss it through. It can just be connection for connection's sake.
Absolutely. So let's do the stats, because I love these stats. So the research is there. When we get our people together in an organisation, and we can talk about personal relationships, I mean, it goes without saying. And it's not that we don't know it, it's just that it's hard to do in the moment, isn't it? So the stats on organisations, getting your people connected and together in whichever way you can, whether that's uniting them online or getting them together in a group, particularly if you've just had a massive change or people have left. Get your people together because you want to get them re-energized and back on the same page. Yeah. So we know that when you connect your people more, they are going to be 2.5 times more engaged in their work, so more motivated.
Wow. That alone is a step worth holding on to.
That alone.
Yeah.
And they're going to be 3.2 times more likely to therefore influence customers to be much more satisfied. So you'll have much more customer satisfaction by 3.2 times. And then this one, which I love as a business entrepreneur, is if you get your people connected and talking, they're going to be 5.4 times more likely to be more agile, which just makes sense because you've got more glue between everybody, which means they can move quicker and into the next steps of your organization or strategy. Yeah. So you're going to get so much from getting your people together, and it's worth the risk.
I totally agree. And I think particularly in times of change in organisations, perhaps if some people are leaving the company and others are staying, we do very often hear, this is not the time, we can't be seen to be spending money. And I get it, budgets are very tight in for many organisations, and if people are leaving, and if there are creative ways that you can get your people together, just think about what it's doing both for them, but also for your organisation as well in terms of its ongoing performance. It's not really the moment to let connection disappear. Absolutely. It really isn't. Also because of the narrative that people then create about what's going on. So it really, it may sound counterintuitive, but it's like when you've had an argument at home. That is the moment to step into connection.
So true. Oh, Pen, I'm going to pick up on that because I think that's so... Oh, and actually, two things off of what you said. One is, if you think about the cost of getting people together, what is the cost of not getting them together? I don't know how good we always are at looking down the track and going, that is going to be like 5-10 times the expense when I've got to piece that chaos together.
That is a full saving.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly a full saving. Yeah. Exactly a full saving. Yes, and the other thing that came up for me as you were talking was exactly in the same way in personal relationships. When we've gone through difficult times, moments of transition or change, it could be so tempting to just want to fix the problem. Yeah. And I think, again, that's something that happens in personal relationships or issues in our life is we just want to fix the problem. But if you come back to the relationship and spend some time repairing it, you'll fix all... You won't just fix the problem on the table. You'll fix all the ones down the road. Yeah. Because the glue in your relationships are going to be so much more resilient and robust that you won't have to do this every time. So it's that, sometimes I have people saying that they just want the silver bullet, just fix this problem. Like, if you fix the relationship, you've fixed every problem in the future.
Exactly. It's really focusing on exactly as you said, people and relationship, and also that emotional dimension, rather than trying to fix everything through the intellectual dimension. Yeah. Just get people together, get them connected.
Yeah. And I really get that takes a bit of patience.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not the easiest dimension to manage. That is for sure. Yeah. But very, very important. So connection, along with communication. All the C's, Phil.
All the C's. C's are one of the easiest ones to illustrate. So if you think about what's happening in your organisation, what could you do to get people together? How could you get people more connected? I mean, one of the really obvious things on an individual basis is pick up the phone. Yeah. And it sounds like nothing. And again, you can just resolve so much. You can get so much. Think about investing in glue between every person, yourself and every person in your network. And if you pick up the phone, you've just put a massive bit of super glue between you and that relationship.
It's similar with personal relationships as well, in as much as what we can tend to do, this happens so much, I think, in personal relationships when we have arguments, is we get busy on the text. And I don't know if texts very often solve conflict. Maybe they do sometimes. Maybe. And
it would have to be a very good text.
Very good drafting of text. Yeah. Very nuanced. Pick up the phone. Yeah. And when I think about this in organisations as well, if we've got a really large team, a global team across many, many regions, it can feel really tough to be connected for time zones and various reasons. What about a video message? Like even if it's one way, that human contact where people can see your face, hear your voice, is going to make a difference. compared to either silence
Absolutely.
or perhaps an email.
Absolutely.
So have a think
Absolutely.
about it.
Get yourself on video. There's something I was reading about. I think it's relevant here. So I'm going to sort of bring it in as an extra kind of concept. I was looking up difference and challenge and, unhealthy conflict, and discovered a research paper around conversational receptiveness, which was about, actually, if you reframe what it is to move towards connection even in difficult times, if you reframe that as an opportunity to discover, ask some questions,
Nice.
to acknowledge the other person's position,
Yeah.
to learn,
Yeah.
and to negotiate. And that was one of the things I loved about that particular piece of research and this model, is that actually whenever we're having a conversation around difference, really what we're doing is negotiating our way to an outcome that's going to work as best as possible for everybody.
Yeah.
And so if we reframe difference away from an argument to a negotiation, after we've done all the acknowledging, listening, asking, discovering, an opportunity.
Where's the middle ground?
Yeah, where can we get to here? Because that could be exciting. Oh, I wonder what what if I take a step here, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
That we're actually negotiating a way forward. Much better way to think about those conversations in tough times.
Yeah.
So that's a little side bit of theory there. Conversational receptiveness.
Nice.
I think there'll be more coming around that, because I really like that model. So a couple of other tips on connection. Daily networking. So making it, whether or not you think that there's tough times coming down the track or change or transition. And actually it's the same in our personal lives.
Yeah.
People who are more supported and more networked just fare much better through difficult moments, So actually every single day, how are you building that bank?
Yeah.
And your secret weapons here are appreciation, reciprocity, and support. Discuss.
And they are so much easier than we think they are.
Yeah.
So just going back to what you said about the network, when we're busy, either in our personal lives or in our jobs, it can feel unnecessary really to go and do some networking, because we are constantly in communication with lots of people, particularly around, the obvious people we have to talk to get our job done or to, live our lives. It's when the tough times hit that we often need that broader network of influence, broader network of people who are going to be able to help us through those tough times. So whilst it may not feel necessary when everything's kind of going really well, those are the times to invest, even if it's 5 minutes a day, in building your network and just keeping connections
going.
One
LinkedIn connection.
Do it.
Yeah.
And how can we do that? Well, you mentioned 3 really, really good things there. So I think very often when we think about connection and relationships, particularly in the workplace, the question we get asked all the time is, well, I haven't really got a good reason to connect with them or reach out to them. And that's why the suggestions you've made are so brilliant, because they don't really need any reason. So the first one is appreciation. And this is so underappreciated, ironically.
Especially when we're thinking about people up the ranking.
Yes.
That won't need our appreciation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like going back to school days and appreciating your teacher or being nice to your teacher.
Yeah, or somebody in the year ahead.
Yeah, it was seen as being something that you just didn't do.
Yeah.
But we love appreciation as individuals. We are not immune to the power of compliments. None of us are, really.
Definitely
so
not.
Appreciation is a really, really easy one-way step to connect with people in tough times or at any times. I really like this, firstly because there's not enough of it around, secondly because it makes people feel really good, whether they are distant from you, senior to you at work, junior to you, whoever they might be. It makes people feel really, really good. And thirdly, you don't need a response from them. You're not sitting there thinking, oh, God, they didn't reply to me. And, what do they think of that email or message I left them? It's completely one way. It's so easy to do. So that is appreciation. Go out and do it today. Do we do enough of that in our personal lives would be my question.
Absolutely. Yeah. Appreciate those near to you.
Yeah.
Right. Do one for each person a day.
Yeah.
Just see what the impact is.
Yeah. The second one is reciprocity. And this is about the give and take. So what can I give? What can I do for you that might start a stronger connection and may even lead to you doing something for me? So they often say, don't they, when you move into a new house, ask your new neighbour for a cup of sugar. not because you need the sugar, but because you will then establish a relationship of reciprocity in as much as your neighbours do things for you, which can be really useful down the track. So reciprocity is about kind of establishing that give and take relationship with somebody, you know. So for example, I'm going to prioritise that request you've made from me, or here's an article that I thought you might really, really like, or, you know, something in the house as well.
Or I really want you, or I've got a connection I think you would love to meet.
Yeah, exactly. So it's giving something, which, as I said, might lead to you receiving something back. It may start a two-way reciprocal relationship, and it's not really the point of it. The point of it is a really easy way to connect with somebody where it doesn't cost you very much. It might be somebody you know you're going to introduce them to. It might be an article that you've read. It doesn't cost you time or money, and yet it's made a connection with them.
Yeah. And then finally, support, which is, can you reach out and simply help someone? If you know someone's struggling, you know someone's in need. Slightly different from reciprocity in that actually you're looking specifically for areas where you might be able to help somebody, as opposed to simply filling out your daily reciprocity bank and future-proofing. It's that someone needs something right now.
And the one thing I would say on that is, I think we can often think that other people have got lots of people in their lives who will reach out and support them. And whilst that may be the case, we might find it surprising how sort of far up the queue, if you like, of those supportive people we are in other people's lives. So even if you think, they've probably got loads of friends and family, step in and make the offer.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last thing I'd say on connection is think about weak ties, particularly if you're transitioning out of a company, that we can often stay within our kind of inner circle for safety. Actually, research tells us that it's our weaker ties who are going to create more opportunities for us. So really stay connected or make connections with people that you know less. Okay, so that is connection. And the second one is vision of the future. I'm going to start this with a stat. Come on, let's kick it off with a stat. So according to research, that's the phrase, only 15% of employees feel that their organisational leadership communicate an inspiring vision of the future that they feel motivated to move towards. Only 15%. Now, this feels to me like a really easy win for leaders.
Yeah, absolutely.
To learn to tell a compelling vision of the future. I talked about this on one of our social media posts recently. It's a bit like a theatre director and designer and producer creating the world, the set, the scenery, the costumes for the actors to step into, so that they can even more believe in that world. And you sort of have to do the same as leaders, that when we're in a difficult time or a time of transition, we're going to create a vision of devastation and difficulty, because that's where our negative bias wants to go. It's going to be a nightmare. I don't know what's coming, or it's just this void. You as the leaders paint a vision of what it's going to look like. Suddenly I've got something to move towards.
It feels real.
So, what's the reason for the change? What is the vision going to look like? Paint the picture, and then tell people what is the part that they can play. What are the actions that they can take? I mean, that for me feels like if you do nothing else through change, do that.
Totally.
Because it's the same for us personally.
Absolutely. And in terms of organisational transformations, they are so much less likely to be successful if there is no clear narrative and vision for people to step into. And there may be a few reasons why this doesn't happen perhaps as much as it should. And I think sometimes it might be fair to say that those kind of leading the transformation, perhaps they genuinely don't know what that future vision is going to look like. Now, that may be the case. And I wonder if often there is an idea of what that future vision is going to look like. It's just that either people don't take the time to communicate it, or it's so obvious to them that they assume other people already know what it is.
Yes, I think that's a really good point, is to check in with yourself if you're not communicating this vision. And literally, you want to hit all the, what's it going to literally look like? Yeah. The way this office is going to be laid out, the way that you'll come into work, the way that the teams will be organised. What's it going to feel like when you come in? This is what, we want to, we're going to be much more customer focused. Every week we're going to have customer days where they come in, really, really paint it for us. Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that you check in with yourself of why you're not communicating that. And is it because you can't see it? And if you can't see it, then you need to fire up your imagination and start visualizing it. And yes, it might not look exactly like that in the future, but you've got to have something for people to move towards.
Totally. The bridge might be a little bit zigzag.
Yeah.
But at least there's a bridge, right?
There's a bridge, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a whole reframe on change. It's not that you've fallen off the end of a cliff. It's simply a change of direction that the future hadn't happened yet anyway.
Yeah.
It's just that it's probably going to look a bit different. And it's a bit like for all of our lives, we sort of have to be constant rewriters and editors of our own future narrative.
Yes.
Because that is what life is. It's change.
Yeah.
I said in the TEDx talk, it's not a script, it's an improvisation. And we've got to be ready to shift and move that story.
Totally.
And it might be a better story.
Totally. And I would also say that it may be the case as well that people who are leading organisations and leading change, they may feel very comfortable with change, uncertainty, what may or may not lie ahead, and they may have a clear or less clear vision of what lays ahead. I mean, very often CEOs make it to that position because they are very good at dealing with uncertainty and having visions, for the future. And the people within your organisation may not feel like that, and they may not feel comfortable with uncertainty and change, and they may need a little bit more
I love that.
bridge building.
I absolutely love that, because this really speaks to the real human element and human development. That if you think about yourself as in terms of being the leader, if you can take even a bit of that, what we might call containment in therapy, that I know this, this is quite an uncertain time. This is what it's going to look like. And I'm going to hold this for all of us until it feels more real for you. Trust me.
Yeah.
And that you can own some of that for them. That we'll often say in a therapeutic relationship, I know you don't feel hope. Let's say, for example, now I'm going to hold that for you until you're ready. Yeah. That is a wonderful place to put yourself as a leader.
Totally. And I think, perhaps there can be a bit of frustration from the top that people aren't getting on board, aren't getting behind the changes. And I would go back to, they don't necessarily all feel the same as you about the situation. So, don't
get frustrated.
You don't get frustrated because not everybody is facing the change the way that you are. We are all different. And your job as a leader is to understand those differences and create that vision of the future to enable people to feel like
that's it.
There's more security to step into.
Hold the space. Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of tips on building a vision of the future, creating a vision of the future. The first one is what I said earlier, is the 3 whats. An really easy way to communicate this to your people and your organisation. What is the reason for the change? What is it going to look like in the future? Paint that picture. And what can each individual do? What's their part in moving towards it? That's a really simple framework. Second thing is really focus on what is possible. What are you excited about? What would you like to happen? Again, this is just managing that negative bias where we're going, it's going to be terrible. And then the last one, which I think this is absolutely brilliant for individuals, particularly transitioning out of a company, but actually whether you're staying or moving out, is paint the picture of the value that you bring. So if you've been made redundant or suddenly have a massive curveball of change come into your life, think about the story that you're telling. This is not just for leaders in organizations managing a big organizational change, but you as an individual, as you go to your next party, have your next conversation with a friend, or have a job interview, whatever it is, you have to paint a vision of the future about yourself. And that is going to be far more beneficial to you if you focus on the value that you're going to bring to the organisation that you're talking to, or even if you're not having a job interview, talking to friends about all of the value that you could bring to an organisation. That is the narrative that you want other people to take forward about you, to help you build your bridge to the future.
It's very powerful, the narrative.
So powerful,
Yeah, I don't think we focus on it quite enough. So those are our 5 areas to focus on through change, whether that's in your personal life or your professional life.
So we've looked at communicate, the accept and build mindset, the energy to act, connection, and finally,
story and vision.
Yeah, vision of the future.
Yeah.
So, take care of yourselves if you are going through tough times and change. It's very human. It will keep coming. You can focus on what you can do from the centre, at choice, with intention, in control of what you can influence. And those 5 steps will give you so much in terms of regrounding you and giving you a much stronger position to move forward from into the future. So yeah, we wish you well. Take care. And if you're all right and things are all right for you, maybe there's someone around you that you can support through tough times.
Go support and connect. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the 4D Human Being podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Do take on board some of the insights, tools and tips, because every time that you try something new to get back to choice, you are making a vote for the you that you want to become. And I love that phrase, Pen.
I do too. And please do share this episode with somebody that you know would really benefit from the lessons and learnings we've been chatting about today.
And of course, if you're interested in more from 4D Human Being, do get in touch. We run workshops, trainings, online, in person, conference events and keynotes. We've got the 4D On Demand platform for your whole organisation. And we do have a free Essentials membership where anybody can sign up for absolutely free to access some of our insights, tools and tips. So do get in touch with us if you'd like to hear more. We cannot wait to hear from you and to carry on the conversation.